Hey friends, and welcome back to Stories for the Future. Today's guest is someone I've been really excited to speak with. His name is Tom Meyers. He's an osteopath, futurist, and author of 2 books, Futurize Yourself and The Futures Effect. And you can see why he had to be a guest on Stories for the Future. Tom's whole mission is about helping people not just navigate the chaos of our times, but actually grow through it, to step into their potential and live more purposefully even when the world feels a bit upside down. In this conversation, we talk about reinventing the stories we tell ourselves, tapping into what he calls the futures mindset, and small, doable steps we can all take to feel more hopeful and grounded right now. So if you've been feeling a little bit overwhelmed by, everything these days, you should absolutely prioritize this episode. Let's dive in. So welcome so much to Stories for the Future, Tom. It's so great to have you here, finally.
Thank you very much. And let's create a story for the future, right?
Yes, exactly. So before we dive into the big topics that we're going to talk about, I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. What led you to combine osteopathy, futurism, and personal development? It's quite a unique mix, I think.
Yeah. And since a couple of weeks, I can add musician on there as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you can find me now on all the platforms on the name Fitful. Fitful with double L. Yeah, that's another story. But
is it singing or is it some kind of?
I write the lyrics of songs, and then that what I cannot do, I get AI to generate it for me. And it's absolutely amazing. You will not be able to hear the difference from a professional to what I've created on that. So you can check that out.
I will definitely do that.
But
yes.
From all of these things, let's say that there is a main theme. I want to help humanity transition this difficult times and flourish and thrive, and what I call to be fitful. Mm-hmm. So I call myself the Fitful Futures Explorer. And everything I do is based on that from different perspectives, right? But know that I was trained as a chef.
Right. Yeah, that's a very surprising start to the story.
So when my first year, in the secondary school, was trained as a chef because I had no idea what I was good at, except for being good at nothing, because that's what I was considered. And so I just followed into footsteps that were somewhere already, how do you say that? Predestined by others. Right? And so I ended up into catering. I ended up never working in a kitchen, but in the restaurant overseas in England, on a cruise ship, the Queen Elizabeth II. And that was somewhere between 1990 and 1998. And that I went some wandering years, working in catering, in hotels, then traveling around the world, then working in hotels again, then on a cruise ship, and so forth. And then I came back in 1998, back to Belgium, because those wandering years were over. Everything socially became back into Belgium. And a good friend of mine called me to say okay, Tom, what are you doing? And at that moment, I had no idea. And he says we are looking for somebody to open a charcuterie deli, so selling charcuterie, cheese, wine, because in the 8 years that I had been away, he had created a very successful business and wanted to expand. And I was the ideal candidate, and they had a shop, and they said we were going to help you if you want to do this. And I thought this is a gift from the heavens, right? Because I was thinking from the rest of my life to be a waiter, because management hadn't worked for me. Every time I ended into management, 2 months later was depressive, and something happened that I had to stop mentally, physically unwell. And so this came as a surprise. And at the same time, I saw this is it, this is going to bring me the success, everything he had, basically, because, he had a big house, a nice car, nice motorbike, a successful business, and so forth. And on 9/9/99, I opened my own deli. And 2 months later, I was suicidal depressive. And so it looked like a great idea. It was a gift from the heavens, but it turned out that I was not made for that. From traveling around the world to be imprisoned between four walls was for me devastating. But it was the greatest moment also because everything from that moment onward changed. I had some coaching, and through this coaching, there's 4 steps that actually I went through. And it's only recently that rewriting my first book that I actually saw that the 4 steps are very distinctive. And these 4 steps, the first one is introspection. So first of all, my coach said what are you doing here, Tom? So I had to describe, and I didn't actually really think about it. I had to describe, what did I needed help with? Right? And it was like this, I felt this personality and this individuality of me inside of me was conflicting. And after that, I was also thinking okay, this is what is going wrong with me. This is what I need help with. And I want to have harmony. And I want these 2 parts of me coming back into balance. So that was introspection, defining what is the problem, what do you want? Then she said okay, now tell me your story. So not the future story, but the past story. Right? So retrospection, because I had, over the lifetime created some limiting beliefs, metaphors. I'm good for nothing. I will always be good for nothing. The future is que sera, whatever is going, will be, will be. And there are situations in my past that were just blown out of proportion. And I did not see that, but she helped me change my perspective on past experiences. And then the third step was, okay, she gave me homework, 3 questions. And at the end, when these were discussed in the second session, turned out that it was to find my potential. And turns out there was a therapist, communicator, teacher, researcher, and traveler in me. That's the potential I'm born with. So there is this introspection, finding that there is this inside of me. And then she asked me, okay, now imagine an ideal day in 10 years' time. And you start with, I wake up in the morning and, okay, I didn't have the guidelines. That she just gave me that question, and I thought it's the most ridiculous thing in the world because I have a shop that's not working, I'm personally not well, physically not well, mentally, and you want me to think about the future, but this is completely bonkers, right? In that moment. But I was scared of her. She was quite intimidating. And I was easily intimidated. And so I thought okay, if this is my potential, if this is what I'm born with, so I have this conflict, I want harmony. Would harmony not exist if I start to put my potential into action? Because why else would I have this potential? Why else do we have different potential? Of each person has a different potential set. So if it was not important, would it have been phased out into our evolution? So I started to imagine, what could a therapist, etc., be in 10 years' time? So I created a story, and the phrase that entered from that was, I'm a therapist who has developed his own approach, who has written a book about it, and is asked around the world to give presentations and workshops. Ooh. And from that moment onwards, I had a focal point, and the things just happened. after that, I went to a workshop or like a presentation on kinesiology, which is a muscle testing manual therapy technique. And when I saw this, I thought, hey, but I can do this. I started this course, and then the teacher said, have you done this before? No, this is the first time, but I feel so in my element doing this, like I've always done that. And that is how I entered into manual therapy. And then the choices was, okay, I want something more professional. Osteopathy came. And then in 2007, I was certified as an osteopath. So I did it so what was it, 2001? I was 31 at the time. 2007, I started my practice. And then as soon as I started to work as a practitioner, people were saying, Tom, you're doing something different. And I was having behavioral changes in people by physical treatment, less stress, more focus, better decision making, changes in temporality. People had more time. And, here we are. This is like 25 years later. And now I'm teaching, and I'm actually that therapist, communicator, teacher, researcher, and traveler. And I cannot see my future any be different than just doing that.
It's fantastic. It's a great story, and I think that so many people have a kind of a similar thing, that they go into something because of their background or the stories they tell themselves. But you had this episode when you got suicidal that woke you up in a way, and so looking back at that, I guess you're happy about that moment today.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Because it
I'm happy
changed
about
everything.
all my difficult moments, actually.
Yeah.
Because even the ones before, which was like, there have been difficult moments, like everybody has them. And, but I've created them all into something, like a source. And I say sometimes to my patients, that what we go through, and definitely personally, that what we go through is helping me understand my patients better, have more empathy for them, and also that they resonate more with me because they feel, that there is a kind of understanding because of experience, not of books, not of
Yes.
writing, not of something that you've heard, but really live. And on a subconscious level, people connect with that.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's go on to like the big one that I'm thinking a lot about these days. So because the world today, now it's April when we record this, the world feels not only a bit but quite chaotic. You might say we have all the political issues, we have climate crisis, we have like big changes happening so fast. So how do we not just survive this, but actually find a way to thrive, to grow?
So I think that 3 steps will be important into that, right? First of all, is at this moment, we are very much evolutionary wise trying to control our environment. Right? So for 12,000 years, we tried and we adapted our environment so that we would have it easier and fit into it. Now, when we are seeing what is happening outside of us, it's like a wild horse running away from us, and we are running after it, still trying to catch up with it. And that is that on the political side or is that on the technological side? We are trying to run after it, and we are depleting our energies, resources. And we are just getting tired and tired running, because if we try to run, it seems to be running faster. So what we need to do is to stop trying to control that environment, but focus on ourselves and start to change our perspective on that environment. So instead of controlling everything on the outside, it's controlling ourselves and our perspective on it, how we react onto it. That is very important that we do that today. Because at the moment, we seem to be lost in control because we put the control outside of us, not inside us. Then the second step is also that at this moment, when we look at the future, it's a big void and a very unknown area. From what is going to change? Everything is going to change. And there is like this, whatever is going to happen, we don't know. But in fact, that's also an illusion, because there are many things that don't change, or as I call them, do not alter. And so DNA does not alter. Create a DNA for your future. Find the things that do not alter, on which you can build, because that gives you security, safety. If something happens, you can fall back onto that. So no matter what the scenario of the future plays out, you have to have a DNA for your future so that you can go back to that. And that again is not on the outside, but it's from within you. My DNA for the future exists out of 3 elements. Like a DNA helix, you have strands and you have bonds that connect them. The strands are subjective. For me, it is, what do I want to feel? I want to feel content, fulfilled, and healthy. I ask many of my patients, how do you want to feel? I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel that. I said, that's not my question. How do you want to feel? If you don't, if you don't know what you want, how can you get it, what you want? Because we create avoidance behavior by not knowing what we want, but by knowing what we don't want.
Yeah.
So what do you want to feel? The second part, subjective, is what are your aspirations? What do you want from life doing the things you do? What does that have to, what do you want from that? I want to have a great future, and future is life, and GREAT is an acronym for good, resilient, evolvable, actionable, and transcendent. Okay? So this is the elements that I want in my life. This is what I want to be able to create. But it's subjective. What is my objective part is my bonds, and that we come back to what I said before, my potential. I'm born with it, I will die with it. Even if I'm 1,000 years old, I still will have that. Therapy, communication, teaching, research, and travel. That is my objective part that I can develop and express in different ways. Because today I'm an osteopath specialized in stress-related ailments. At 80, I still be a therapist, maybe in a retirement home, listening to the nurses. I still be a therapist. It will be expressed in different ways. So my DNA is something that does not alter, but will be expressed in different ways, no matter the circumstances of my environment and myself. Most people don't have a DNA. Most people don't have this basis on which they can build. And it's actually Jeff Bezos from Amazon who uses this, right?
Okay.
It's not what it will change, that's the most important question, but find what does not change. Like for him, reading, people will continue to read. Kindle was created from that. Shopping, people will continue shopping, but we can change how they shop. And that will always change in time, over time. You see how that works also on a business level. And the third part that I would say from do less, enjoy more. Our biological footprint, like the ecological footprint. If you use too many resources from Earth that Earth can replenish in a year, you get trouble. The biological footprint is your footprint. How many of the demands and you have and resources. Many people are having too many demands on them for the resources they have. You're not a robot.
Yeah.
Your energy is limited.
Yes.
So these are the three elements that I think are essential to start the process of transitioning in this change, right? Because it's all done from within on purpose, while life before has been by accident, right? Natural selection, mutation, everything is like que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. We will see.
Yeah.
And this has to change now. We have to have a purpose to our lives. We have to add that, have a direction, so we can change our behavior and our environment. And this is how, within a generation, we will be able to transition and flourish and thrive.
So I was thinking about the DNA that you mentioned. That would mean I'm thinking about all the people losing their jobs these days, for instance. So having a DNA, something that does not change, does not alter, would make you resilient towards all the external, like losing that job or losing your identity as something within a job, because you already have that, your personal DNA within, right?
Exactly. Also,
Yes.
so you have upskilling and reskilling. Yes. So I think it's the World Economic Forum that said 1 billion people need to upskill and reskill within the next 5 years or something like that. Okay. But if you don't know your potential, then
Yeah.
what am I going to do? But if you
Yes.
know your potential, and then you are more proactive, you can think ahead, you're probably already preparing for the eventuality that something is going to change, and you evolve or you develop your skills to what is going to be needed. Or when something unexpected happens, then you're going to look from, okay, these are my skill sets, this is my potential. How can I express that in a different way that is needed today? And then that change is part of your evolution as something that brings you what you want to feel and your aspirations. Because it doesn't mean that it's easier. Right? I have my DNA for the future, but does that make my life easier? Not necessarily. I still have a lot of conflicts. I still have moments where I think, gosh, why is this happening? But I can refocus always. Take an overview perspective. What is happening? Where am I going? Where am I going? What is happening in this moment? Am I deviated from my path? Or is this because I have to learn something? While in the beginning it was a lot of deviation of the path, today it's more from I'm getting resistance to grow, to learn. And it's like a bodybuilder. A bodybuilder, he wants to create muscles. He's not going to do that with something that weighs 10 grams, a pen. No, he has resistance.
Yes.
And that resistance is not going, oh no, it's too heavy. So he builds it up. But he knows if I need this resistance because I want to have muscles. Well, the same is when you have your DNA for the future, sometimes the resistance is increasing because you need to transition, you need to grow, you need to elevate. But if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know your DNA for the future, how can you make that distinction between something that is for you or if you deviate it? And with these challenges that we're getting now with upskilling and reskilling, also here, if we can find again our center from which we can act and proact, the story changes and the story of the future changes.
I wonder, because I can understand what you mean, and I see, like looking back at my own journey when I went from one career or industry and trying to, okay, where do I go now? I don't have any idea. And what I did was to look at the kind of the market, what was needed at the moment, and I went in that direction. But I didn't think about having a DNA or what's my potential. So I went in a direction where, okay, I see that there's a demand for this, and then ending up just hating it. It was not for me. So how do you kind of find the balance or the match then between what you see as your potential and what the world needs? How to merge them in a way?
I can only say this retrospectively, of course, right? Because of
Yes.
going through that. It's a very strange thing is that I never really had to think about it. It just gradually made itself known. It's like if I see where I am today, specialized in stress-related ailments, but I've been specialized in that since 2007. And today is exactly what is needed. Because many of our problems today are stress-related, or it's called dysautonomia or an autonomic lesion, leading to musculoskeletal problems, mental health problems, multimodal problems. All of that underlying it is this dysfunction in the autonomic nervous system. Anyway, you have to trust the process, that you are here for a reason. And once you start developing your DNA for the future, and when you start from your source, then when you are in contact with something, like a hand that is given to you, then you can say from yes or no, or maybe,
Yeah.
better.
Yes.
You probably see things already happening before they happen, because you know where you're going. And because, okay, one thing to maybe to I need to say specifically, with that DNA for the future, you need to create an image of the future,
Yes.
right? It's not just
Exactly.
enough.
You know how to see what
You
you're
have to have
aiming
a
for.
goal
Yeah.
somewhere. And so as I had
Yes.
I'm a therapist
Yeah.
who has developed his own approach and so forth, right? So, but from then onwards, you can make better decisions and choices and actions. And so what you're saying, if you don't have it, then of course, we might find ourselves again on astray. And we are always finding this like a cycle of, I am again where I was. And by doing this, you break through that. You let your future pull you forward instead of the back pushing you into direction unknown.
True. So you're more following the stream, just like where it goes.
Yeah. We are
Yeah.
pulled in hundreds of different directions at the moment.
Yes.
That is wearing us
We are.
out. It's physically wearing us out, mentally wearing us out.
Yeah.
But if you have this kind of focal point, and remember that focal point is somewhere fixed, but it can be expressed in different ways, right? So it's adaptable. And so you create stability through change. What do you think is happening in the body? Right? Are homeostasis or that's small changes to keep the stability through change. Allostasis with adrenaline and cortisols and muscle tension up and relaxing, that's allostasis, right? So it's also creating stability through change. That is what health is all about within the body. Now I'm creating the idea of eustasis, the good balance between us and our environment, which also needs stability through change. It's not fixed. Because fixation is a problem, that's a dysfunction. And what we need is to be able to cope and manage change. Not by controlling, again, not by controlling that environment, but by controlling how we react to that environment. By our primitive brain, but by a rational brain. And by making that, by repeating it over and over again, creating a behavioral change, that is actually a routine. And if you go back into neurology and DNA, you have the DNA, the biological DNA, and you have what is called epigenetics. So you have the gene and epigenetics. And genetics is actually from that what is going to stimulate the gene to be expressed in different ways. And the DNA is not fixed either. It can be expressed in different ways.
Yeah, you can turn it on and off,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The
Through what?
yes.
Behavior in an environment.
Yeah.
And you can see that in the astronauts are going to the space station. Within a couple of months, their epigenetic expression is changing. And their DNA expression is changing through epigenetic stimuli. So the environment is changing. That changes the epigenetic expression, or I don't know, I need to look it up how it's exactly formulated. But actually they have epigenetic changes that they can measure when they come back to Earth. So if they can do that within a couple of months, or when they have that within a couple of months, imagine what we can do. But we need a focal point on which we can create those behavioral and environmental changes. And that is what I call a DNA for your future.
Right. So I'm really curious because, like, just a coincidence, I started going to a manual therapist or an osteopath. No, manual therapist and physiotherapist. He is last week because of some back issues. And I'm really curious about what you see in your patients and what you do to kind of make it better. And what you see due to all the things that we've been talking about with all the pulling we have in all different directions. And I'm also, I don't know how young people you have in your clinic, but also for the young people that I see are even more pulled in all different directions and or pressured into a specific type,
Yes.
What can you tell me about that? What do you see and what you do?
So manual therapy is basically based on developments of the 19th and 20th century, which were at the time with a lot of problems due to physical trauma or overuse. So repetition.
Yeah.
That created musculoskeletal problems, neck, shoulder, back pain. Right? Acute. Right? And when the patient came, and they said to the therapist or the practitioner, when he asked what happened, he said, I fell, I had an accident, I'm working in the industry and so forth. So you could say that until 2020, most of the patients had a sort of explanation for their pain, neck, shoulder, back. Today, it's a different story. Yes. Today, I ask my patients, what happened? I don't know. I woke up with it. I just moved a little bit forward, an everyday move, and I was stuck.
Yes.
Okay, so pain area, pain intensity the same, the origin different. Right? So what most manual therapists are doing today is treating it with the 19th and 20th century treatment protocols. But it's not a biomechanical problem. It's an autonomic problem. Stress over time has created an autonomic dysfunction or an autonomic lesion where that sympathetic nervous system is fixed into a state, and when you rest, it doesn't come down. Because normally, sympathetic and parasympathetic is like moving synchronously, but one goes up, the other one goes down, and then the one goes up and goes down. So it's always moving up and down. Now what you get is it's sympathetic is stuck, parasympathetic is low, so no regeneration. And then body starts to compensate, and then one day I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's a big difference between before 2020. There were already cases with this chronic stress-related musculoskeletal disorders. And for some reason, I attracted them. But today, it's increasingly relevant, more and more patients are coming with that. And more patients are saying, I went to my osteopath, went to my physio, but it did not work. And then they come to me, and then one session might be enough. Because I'm building in the autonomic resetting before my treatment, before my symptom treatment. This is what I've been developing since 2007, because my patients were telling me that I was doing something different. And I related that and so created what is called the reset approach. Reset is R-E-A-S-E-T, the return to ease approach, which is like a protocol that when you do that first and then build in the symptomatic, so the treatment of the physical symptom at the end. But it's like, when you're in a house and you have a switchboard, right? How do you call it? For the electricity, when there is when you have a flashbang storm outside and suddenly your switch is tripped. Okay, you just put that back, no problem. But what if there is somewhere in your house, somewhere an overcurrent? You're going to switch it back and it will always come back. Yeah. So we need to fix the overcurrent, the sympathetic nervous system. We have to bring that down. We have to push that parasympathetic. So there is back balance. So the body can, again, create autonomic balance. And then we're going to treat the overcompensations that have been created so that when we come to the symptom, that it is free from influences and we can just work on it specifically at the end of one treatment.
Right.
So what your question was, what are we seeing differently? People get far more musculoskeletal problems, just tension in neck, shoulder, and lower back. Not from a physical trauma, but from unknown origin. They also start to complain more at the same time of mental health, like moodiness, being more reactive, changes in memory, and also what's called multimodal disorders. Then they have some problem here and there, and in different systems in the body as well. Digestive problems. Some people they have like paresthesis in the legs, so that is tingling sensations, and nobody knows what it is about. And all of that can be related to that autonomic nervous system. It's it's a big change today. And when you say about young people, it's the same thing. So when I believe, and I asked my father, I'm not free of problems, right? I'm 55 years old soon. I'm not free of any problems, age-related or not. And I asked my father, did you have these problems already when you were 50? And he said, no, 70. But what I'm seeing today is that the younger people of 30 are having the same issues as I have now.
Right.
Which I did not have when I was 30.
That's a bit scary.
And so how does this all relate with each other? I have some inklings, I have some ideas about that. Of course, it's not proven. But it's all related also with maybe, Wi-Fi radiation, Gs that maybe are, or just by the stress that we have in our lives that is accelerating cellular aging.
But I'm curious, could you just, how do you do that reset then before you do the treatment?
Okay, it's a full body treatment, right? Because the autonomic nervous system, so the parasympathetic, so the relaxation, recuperation, regeneration, the source of that is within the back of the head and in your sacrum, and the sympathetic is in your spine. And so we need to do what's called craniosacral therapy first. So when you start working on the head first, because on the head, there you have the biggest influence on calming the body. If you have children, and for the listeners who have children, when a child is in distress, what do? You put it in the corner and start screaming at it, or what would work better is to take it in your arms, not squeezing too hard, not too loose either. So there is a zone in which you hold them in security, and then you rub the head, right?
True.
And you rub the head, and you touch and you rub until you feel that the respiration is, the breathing is going down again, that snottering becomes calmer again, and then you say okay, what happened? Also, when you forget a name, what was that again? Did that person? When you have something done you shouldn't have done, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Tension, stress.
You touch your head. Yeah.
So what I'm doing when the person is lying down, this is what I discovered. So I was doing this instinctively. I was holding the head safely here on the occiput until it calmed, released. It's like, from butter that came out of the deep freeze to butter that was left outside for a couple of hours. That's that feeling of suddenly you just go into it. But no massage, no pulling, nothing strenuous or nothing too active. Really waiting for the body to calm under my hands. Then do that also behind here, that's the mastoid bone, because the vagus nerve, very important parasympathetic nerve, comes out here. Then you do it on the temples. Again, 2 centimeters inside is the amygdala. Inside the bone, you have the pituitary gland, all related to stress response. Right? So by touching the head, it's like giving a signal to that brain part that has no language, verbal language, but can react to touch. Say you're okay, you're safe, there is no saber-toothed tiger running after you. And you really feel that melting sensation. So that's the first thing. So once you've done that and feel that the body starts to relax, well, then also neurohormonal changes are happening, because otherwise you would not feel that, or I would not feel that. And then you go to the left side of the body, like you're going to release the tensions in the arm, in the thorax, in the leg, the first left side, right side, you touch the sacrum, the lumbar spine, and you do the same thing. Always accompanying until you feel there is this easiness coming back into the body. After that, some spinal decoactive manipulation, really light pressure onto the spine to release the pressure on the sympathetic nervous system. Because it's not because you push parasympathetic nervous system, push the relaxation, recuperation, regeneration buttons, that you lower the sympathetic. So you also need to inhibit sympathetic.
Okay.
So that is all I do, and that takes about 15 minutes.
Wow.
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, so there is some kind of, the more you do it, the more it works.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching others to do this, right? In the Reset Approach is a 4-day workshop. I'm teaching manual therapists to do this. I go to India. I've been to Dubai. I've been here doing this in Belgium. And so in 4 days, I can transmit all that they need to know to do this and build this into their practice. And from then onwards, I get then the messages, Tom, it's changed my practice. My patients are so happy. They're really seeing the difference. They're feeling it. So it is transmittable. It's not me.
Interesting. Yes.
But then...
Have you been to Norway?
No, but I love, manual therapies, like physiotherapy schools and osteopathy schools. Yeah. Please invite me to get in contact with me, because this is what I want to do, because it's what we need to do also. It's not, we are too focused on changing the mindset, through coaching, but the body, what about that? The body changes the mind. If your body's in the stress response, you can do all the talking you want, you can do all the coaching you want, but if that stress response stays active, it's very difficult to implement. Also, for a tip for people that are listening, if you feel that, for example, your mindfulness exercises or your yoga exercises is creating more anxiety, that is when that autonomic nervous system is become a lesion. That is when the body's stress response cannot recover and back to balance. And it's very logical because your body is saying, I need to fight, I need to flee. And you're going to sit down and say, while your body thinks you're in danger.
Yeah.
So it's going to create anxiety, just increasing your activity in the amygdala for you to not do that.
Does it the same go for breathing exercises? Because I can see I have this watch, that
Yes.
measures everything, and if I do some breathing, I can see that helps directly on my what they call the HRV and
Heart
yes.
rate variability.
How does that work? Is breathing different than, for instance, yoga or meditation?
When the autonomic lesion is present or stress-related dysautonomia has led to autonomic lesion, then even the breathing exercises will probably get you more anxious.
Right.
But if you're capable to balance still, if your body has still the capacity to adapt, then all of that becomes a tool to keep it that way.
Yeah.
It's a tool for you to, recreate balance and create resilience. But it's like once you have an injury, then it's a different story. Or once you have a lesion, because an autonomic nervous system, huge accidentally can, parts of it can be severed, but most of the time it's a functional problem. All right, and when you enter that stage, then all of these things feel more anxious, while before that it did not. Also,
Right.
For example, when some people say, go running. Yeah, if you're stressed. Well, in fact, that's the worst thing you can do. If you're really chronically stressed, your heart rate, your breath rate have already been increased. And then they go running and they get an aneurysm.
But that's if they're really stressed,
For a long
from
time.
before.
For a long time. It's
Okay.
not that doesn't
Yes.
happen within in a week or a month or something like that. It's a long time.
Yeah. Yes.
Stress response increases your heart rate, breath rate, muscles tense up. So let's say that's the focal point, or many other things. So when you do relaxation, it has to, decrease your heart rate, your breath rate, and your muscular tension. So when you're thinking about, I'm going to do something to relax, and people say, I'm going to watch a horror movie, and I say I'm going to do sauna,
Right.
I know, because in the sauna, your heart rate goes up, your breath rate goes up. You see?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do things where these three things come down. Those are essential.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what you do, but please do them.
So to be practical then, if people aren't close to a therapist that can help them. So in these days, when people are feeling overwhelmed, really stressed by the news, their job, the state of the world, everything, are there a couple of simple things that people can do? Like instead of then trying to do yoga or meditate or go for a run, what should they do if they don't have access to a therapist?
Sometimes we overestimate our own, what we can do. And then we delay and procrastinate to go and seek help. Please, I'm here because of help by other people. When you need help, even they're not 100% trained into 21st century, manual therapy, please do go and see them.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, I can say do this breathing exercise, but when they're stuck in the autonomic lesion, then it's not going to work. The things we can do is definitely give each other, it might be strange, but if we have a partner or a good friend, sometimes what we need is a hug,
Yes.
right? So a hug, and not just a short hug, but a hug where you feel there is connection, where where you allow yourself and your body to calm down. Yeah? So if you have a partner, create this kind of hug moments. Yeah. Sometimes I say to couples, okay, I'm going to show you a few things that you can do on the head. Your partner lies down on the bed or in the sofa and touch here,
The
the
back of
back
the
of the
head.
head,
Just, yeah.
and also the frontal area. Yeah, so you can do it like this, and also the temples, and so that you're behind them, person is lying in front of you, and you just hold your hands under that, at the end of the neck, beginning of the head, and then your index fingers behind your ears. There's a hard bone, so put your hands
Yeah.
onto that and allow it to unwind. So no massage, just holding it lightly, no pressure. Breathe. So let your partner breathe, you breathe calmly, and just allow it to unwind and stimulate with an intention and attention to say relax. So it's in your mind, it's a stimulation that you want to give. I want you to bring back, I want to stimulate ease. Yeah, I want us to return to ease. Also here on the temples, it's a little bit of a convex area. So when you feel this is concave, and then you have a part where it's convex, that's the part.
Right.
And then like this also. And most of the time, not more than 5 minutes. And do that with the breathing exercise. Yeah? So you ask, your partner or your friend, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Do it yourself while you're doing it. So that you focus on your breathing, not on doing. And synchronize. Right?
Yeah. Huh. That's practical advice. I like that.
And for those who have tried it, please send us a message. Right?
Yes.
Send us a message
Absolutely.
from how was that experience? Please, this is a call to action. Do this to your partner. If you need to know how exactly, if you can't remember, just send me a message and I will write a little document that I can send to you, or maybe a little video that I can make, for people that say okay, what do I need to do again? And let's try this out. Let's see how this works. Well, I've done it with people, I've done it with patients, so I know it works. But I want to know from you, now that when the first time I think somebody asked me on a podcast to explain this, what to do. So let's do this.
Yes, and yes, do send us a message. That's very interesting. But so one final question, because this podcast it's all about how to find a balance between a purposeful and exciting job, career, and a good life in a world now which is more divided than ever and also changing really fast, as we talked about. If you could leave the listeners with one thought or practice, apart from, in addition to what we talked about now, or mindset shift, perhaps, to bring with them into the future, what would that be? You talk also about this future mindset in your book. So what would you say to people?
It's definitely to futurize yourself, right? So it's to have that DNA so that you create a future where you feel in your element, right? And then start working towards that. It's important to, as we said before, to start controlling ourselves and give ourselves a destination, a purpose from, with, and on purpose. Because when everything changes, what is the one element that will be there for the rest of the time you're alive? You. It's more about this change and this chaos is about, it might be strange to say, but put yourself back into the center. But
Yeah.
never forget that what you do influences others. It's your future, your and our future. So what you do, don't be the egoistic person, because that is going to create a lot of strife around you. We are a community. We are a society. We are on this planet together. Get help if you need it.
Yeah.
But know that, centering on yourself, become the center of the universe. You are the center of your universe. But never forget that you are in a community. So I believe that while the chaos is going on, while you may be losing your job, or you need to upskill and reskill yourself, find the center within, that what you can develop. Know that there is a place for you. There is a place for your skills. They will need to transition. But we are in this life, and we're in this part, and you're not alone experiencing this. But it will have to come from you.
Yeah. Right. So the center of your own universe, but not forgetting about people around you. I think that's
We are, this body is made of trillions of cells working together. We are 8 billion on the body Earth. When you're in space on the ESS station, you can't even see the individual. Yeah. And I think, that's we have to remember that. When I look at my body, I can't see my individual cells either, but they're all working together.
true. I mentioned you have written 2 books and you do a lot of interesting work. So where do people find your books, your work, or like a way to get in touch with you?
So futurizeyourself.com is one side. MyersTom.com is the other one. And find me on LinkedIn. That is my main, let's say, social media platform where you can find me, where you can connect with me.
I'll share everything in the show notes so that people can get in touch.
And find my music
check out your work
as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I will do that right away now afterwards. That's very exciting. Looking forward to that. Thank you so much for your time, Tom. It's been really interesting, a different episode, but I think so important one. So yes, I can't wait to share it with people. So thank you so much.
It is about energy transition. But
yes, it is in a different way. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's a wrap on today's episode with the wise and wonderful Tom Meyers. I hope this gave you some new ways to think about stress, potential, and that all-important inner compass, or as Tom calls it, your DNA for the future. If you enjoyed this episode, you might also like something that I have recently put out there into the world. It's called the Quiet Pivot Companion Pack, and it goes with the short solo episodes I have started to publish every Monday. This set of practical tools are there to help you navigate identity shifts and career transitions with more clarity, calm, and self-trust. They're exactly what I would have wanted to have myself back then when I was changing careers myself. So you'll get them on my Substack or on my website, storiesforthefuture.com. And of course, I would always like to hear from you. Reach out, share what resonated from this episode or from the companion pack, or let me know if you tried the partner reset exercise. I'm sure that Tom would also really like to hear that. Until next time, stay curious, be kind to each other, and keep imagining better futures. Talk to you soon.